They gave out mimosas at the door. I stood there for a second, awkwardly shifting from one foot to the other as the hostess with the clipboard asked me, "And your name again?" She had no clue who I was, which honestly matched the vibe of the last 5 years of my marriage. Cleared my throat. Kennan Ryle. Still nothing in her eyes. Just a polite nod and a plastic smile as she waved me through the massive double doors. The ballroom beyond was glowing with soft amber lights, packed with familiar faces I never expected to see again. Some grayer, some thinner. All of them oblivious to what I once went through in the shadow of this building. 3 years ago, I was just a guy sitting alone in a gray Corolla in the company parking garage, gripping a bouquet of yellow tulips with sweaty hands, watching my wife walk into this exact building. Back then, I thought I was surprising her. She was always working late. That night was her final prep for a company-wide pitch presentation. She had texted me an hour earlier saying, "Please don't wait up. This could go past midnight." She didn't say anything about the other man, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself. Her stepping out of the elevator with a laugh I hadn't heard in months, brushing something off the shoulder of her boss's shirt, and then casually, like it was nothing, taking his hand and pulling him down the hall. I stayed in that car for 3 more hours. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just sat there in silence as the bouquet wilted beside me. Then I drove home, deleted our anniversary plans from my calendar, and slept on the couch for the next 6 weeks. She never knew I saw them that night. She only knew that I changed. I started forgetting to respond when she asked about my day. I stopped reminding her about dinner. Eventually, I stopped asking where she was going when she put on lipstick at 10:45 p.m., and she took that silence as permission. I think the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was that slow, rotting erosion of everything we'd built. A marriage that once felt like a warm, stupid joke we were both in on until it wasn't funny anymore. I wasn't perfect. God, no. I was tired. I complained about things that didn't matter. I held on to stress like it was a second job. But I never stepped out. I never made her feel invisible. She did that to me. And the thing is, I never even confronted her. I just drifted quietly like steam off a cup of tea. She never finished. I left 6 months later. No screaming, no final argument. Just a letter on the nightstand and an empty closet. That was the last time I saw her until tonight. The event was for Alumni Success Stories, a networking gig for past project managers and ex-analysts who'd moved on to better titles and flashier cities. A former coworker, Marshall, had tracked me down a month ago and begged me to attend. I'd hesitated for a week, but then something in me, the part still bitter, still raw, whispered, "Go!" So I went and I saw her. She was standing by the champagne fountain with a clipboard in hand, and her hair tied back in the same loose bun she used to wear when she was running late. She hadn't seen me yet, but I saw the wedding ring was gone. She looked tired, a different kind of tired, the kind that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from waking up every day pretending everything's fine. I hovered by the far wall. People passed by, some nodding, some smiling politely, but I didn't move, couldn't. My legs felt like they weighed 100 pounds. And then it happened. She turned. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and then they landed on me. Her whole body froze. Her hand went up slightly as if to brush her hair behind her ear. A nervous tick I hadn't seen in years. Her lips parted. She blinked fast like she didn't trust what she was seeing. And then, without a word, her face crumpled. Tears. Real ones. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just soft, silent tears that spilled as she looked right at me. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because after all these years, after all that silence, I wasn't sure if I wanted to ask why or if I just wanted to walk past her like a stranger. But I knew this much. The real story, the one I've never told anyone, was about to begin. She didn't run over. She didn't shout my name or drop her glass in dramatic fashion. No, that wasn't her style. Not 3 years ago, and certainly not now. The woman I married was always composed, always calculating. Even when she lied, it came out measured, deliberate, like a script she'd practiced in the mirror. But in that moment, when she saw me standing by the corner wall of that massive, gold-lit ballroom, Something inside her cracked. Her eyes filled, shimmered, then broke. All in the span of seconds. I stood still, unsure if I should walk toward her or turn around and disappear the same way I did 3 years ago. But this time, something in me wanted to see what she would do. I didn't need closure. I wasn't that guy anymore. But part of me, a part one thought I'd buried, wanted to know if she ever regretted it. If she ever told the truth to anyone. If she ever told the truth to herself. She took one slow step toward me. Her hand brushed the side of her neck, the way she always did when she felt vulnerable. Then her mouth opened, trying to form words that never came. People around her were still chatting, sipping drinks, unaware that the centerpiece of her emotional collapse was now standing 12 feet away, holding a mimosa he hadn't touched. Then Marshall, the guy who invited me, spotted me from across the floor. "Kennan!" he shouted with a grin, cutting straight through the tension. "Man, you made it." He clapped a hand on my shoulder and pulled me into a quick bro hug. "Dude, I didn't think you'd actually show up." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, thought I'd see what you've all been up to." He started asking something about San Diego, the new startup I'd co-founded out there, but my eyes kept drifting back to her. She hadn't moved. She was just standing there like a statue, one arm crossed over her body, the other clutching her wrist like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Marshall followed my gaze. Then his tone dropped. "Oh, right." He gave me a look. "You didn't know she'd be here?" "No," I said. "But I should have guessed." He exhaled through his nose, a weird mix of sympathy and discomfort. She got divorced last year. Didn't tell anyone at first. Kind of pretended everything was fine. Classic Lena. Lena. I hadn't said her name out loud in over a year. I'd written it on the divorce forms, read it in old emails, but saying it, that felt like dragging a ghost through my throat. Marshall must have picked up on the shift in my face. He gave my shoulder a quick squeeze. "Look, man, you don't owe anyone anything here. If you want to bail, I'll cover for you." I looked him in the eye. "Not this time. 3 years ago, I walked away from everything. My marriage, my job, my house. I packed a suitcase, drove south, and started over in a city where no one asked why my eyes looked hollow. Every morning, I left so quietly she didn't even text for a week. When she finally did, it was a 3-word message. Is this it? No apology, no explanation, just confusion. Like I was the one who vanished without cause. I never replied. Now here I was, standing across from her again, both of us frozen in a ballroom of catered appetizers and casual success stories, as if we weren't carrying entire lifetimes of silence between us. She finally moved, slowly, like she wasn't sure her legs would hold. When she reached me, her voice cracked before it even rose. "Kennan, just my name. That's all it took." I felt a rush of nausea, of everything I'd suppressed. The birthdays spent alone. The nights I stared at her empty pillow. The way I'd second-guessed my own sanity when she said, "It's all in your head." After I confronted her about the long hours, the secrecy, the change in her eyes. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said, voice trembling. "I wasn't prepared." "Neither was I," said flatly. She laughed, a broken, humorless thing. "That makes 2 of us." Her eyes darted to my left hand. No ring, just like hers. A beat passed, then another, and then she said something that truly shook me. "I still wear the necklace." That made me look up, sharp. "What?" She reached into her dress, pulling out a thin silver chain. At the end was a tiny amber stone, the one I'd given her on our first anniversary, the one she used to wear every day until she stopped. "I never stopped wearing it," she whispered. "Even after you left." I swallowed. "Why?" "I don't know," she admitted, eyes glistening. "Maybe to punish myself. Maybe because it was the only real thing I ever had." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I asked the one question I told myself I'd never ask if I ever saw her again. "Why?" She blinked. "What?" "I saw you," I said. "That night. The night you told me not to wait up." She went pale. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she'd been slapped. "You were in the building?" she whispered. No. I was in the parking garage with flowers. I sat there and watched you take his hand. She covered her mouth. Her knees buckled slightly, and I instinctively reached out, steadying her by the elbow. She didn't pull away. I thought you didn't know, she said, voice cracking. I thought you left because you were bored or just done. I left because I realized I was alone in a marriage with someone who already made her exit. She looked up at me. He didn't mean anything. He meant enough for you to risk everything. She didn't respond. Couldn't. I saw the dam behind her eyes break all over again. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't cry because she missed me. She cried because I was finally real again. Because I wasn't just a memory haunting her at night. Because I was standing there, whole, successful, and no longer hers. That's when I knew this night wasn't about closure. It was about truth and all the ways she'd buried it. And I wasn't done digging yet. Her mascara was smudging. Not the dramatic, messy kind you see in movies where a woman wails into someone's chest and ruins a $1,000 suit. No, it was subtle, controlled. Like her face was doing everything it could to keep it together while her soul screamed just beneath the surface. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. I felt hollow, like I'd returned to the scene of the crime, only to find that the building had collapsed years ago, and the ruins still smelled like her perfume. She leaned against a high-top table, clearly shaken. Her fingers were gripping the edge so tightly I could see the whites of her knuckles. No one else noticed. People were still laughing, networking, refilling drinks. I guess when you learn how to keep secrets, you also learn how to suffer in silence. We both had. I thought about writing you, she finally said, eyes on the floor. When? I asked. A few weeks after you left. Then again on your birthday. And then after the divorce papers came. I must have drafted 50 emails. I even bought a card once. It said, I hope you're okay, wherever you are. But I never sent it. Why? She looked up. Because I didn't think I deserved to know where you were. The words hung in the air like a fog we couldn't see through. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think there was a version of her that regretted everything. But I remembered the nights I lay awake, hearing her whisper on the phone in the hallway. I remembered how she used to come home and shower immediately, avoiding my eyes. I remembered the Friday she told me she was spending the weekend at her sister's and how she came back on Sunday with sunburnt shoulders and no explanation. I had always suspected it was more than just the boss. So I asked carefully, was he the only one? Lena inhaled sharply like she'd swallowed glass. I don't know how to answer that. I already knew the truth. The thing is, I'd hired a private investigator 3 months before I left. I never told anyone, not even my brother, who begged me to stop living in denial. But I needed to know the truth before I walked away. I needed the facts to match the feeling, or else I'd carry doubt with me like an anchor. The photos came in an unmarked manila envelope 2 days before our wedding anniversary. There were at least 3 men. None of them looked like me. Younger, flashier. One of them even had a tattoo on his throat. The same one I spotted in her phone once in a blurry reflection from a mirror selfie she claimed was just from work. I didn't confront her, not because I was noble, but because I was exhausted. And now, standing in front of her again, hearing her speak with the fragility of someone unraveling thread by thread, I realized how broken she truly was. Do you remember what you told me at that lake house? I asked suddenly. Her brows pulled together. Which trip? Our 3rd anniversary. We were in Maine. The house with the blue shutters. She hesitated. Yes, you told me, no matter what happens, please don't ever stop believing that I'm on your side. She winced. I was. No, I said. You were on your own side. You always were. She turned away. Her hand went to her face again, this time pressing her fingertips against her eyelids like she could push the tears back in. I didn't plan any of it, she whispered. I know. That's what makes it worse. There was a pause, the kind of pause that changes the course of a conversation forever. The kind that splits history into 2 timelines, before and after. And then I asked her the question I didn't realize had been waiting at the edge of my tongue this whole time. Was there ever a moment you actually loved me? Or was I just the guy you needed to survive your 20s? She looked at me like I just punched a hole in her chest. Kennan, she breathed. Don't do that. Why not? I said, a little sharper than I meant. I gave you everything. I built my life around you. I bent myself into 1,000 shapes to keep us functional. And you just coasted. You let me believe we were okay when you were already somewhere else with someone else. I was scared, she said. So was I. That quiet filled the space again. She looked so small, so unlike the woman who once told me, "You're my whole world." And maybe that was the problem. I was the whole world and she wanted a galaxy. Suddenly, she asked, "Did you ever tell anyone?" "No, not even your family. They only knew I left." She nodded slowly, as if that somehow made sense. "I didn't tell anyone either. Not really. I mean, my sister knew a little, but I always made it sound like we just drifted apart." "You made yourself the victim." She didn't argue. "Yes, I did." There it was. An admission, a real one. And it didn't make me feel better. It made me feel heavier. Because when you wait years for someone to say the truth out loud, you imagine the moment will feel vindicating. But instead, it just confirmed what I already knew. That I had spent years loving someone who couldn't even be honest with themselves. She reached into her purse and pulled out something I didn't expect. A small, folded letter. "I wrote this the night you left," she said, handing it to me. "I didn't have the courage to send it. I didn't take it right away." I stared at the envelope for a while. Her handwriting was still the same. Neat, slightly slanted, with hearts over her eyes. Finally, I reached out and took it. "What do you want from me, Lena?" I asked. "Tonight, I mean. What are you hoping to find in this conversation?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "I want you to know that not a single day has gone by where I didn't wonder what would have happened if I'd chosen differently." "And do you regret it?" I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. "Yes," she said. "I regret all of it." I folded the letter in half and put it in my coat pocket. "I'll read it when I'm ready," I told her. She nodded. Her eyes brimmed again, but she didn't cry this time. And for the first time since I arrived, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Her hands were shaking, and something told me it wasn't just guilt. There was more. Something she hadn't told me yet. Something that would change everything again. I didn't leave the event. I should have. I should have turned around the second she handed me that letter and disappeared back into the night like I'd done 3 years ago. But something told me this night wasn't over. Not even close. There was something in her eyes, just behind the tears, that looked like fear. Not sadness, not regret. Fear. And it wasn't of me. We moved toward the back of the ballroom, near a small lounge area where fewer people congregated. Plush velvet couches, low lighting, and an absurd little cheese board that looked untouched. She sat down, slow and uncertain, like she was trying to stay grounded. I followed, but I didn't sit close. I kept a cushion's worth of distance between us, enough for her to know this wasn't a reunion. "I'm not sure where to start," she said, looking down at her hands. "You already did," I replied. "The truth would be nice this time." She gave a sad little laugh. "It's never been that simple." "No," I said, "but it could have been." She didn't argue. She sat in silence for a few moments, breathing through her nose like she was bracing for impact. Then, with a voice that was barely audible over the soft jazz music in the background, she said, "There was more than just the affair, more than just you and me." My chest tightened. I didn't say anything, but I could feel something crawling up my spine. She glanced around to make sure no one was near. Then she leaned forward. "Do you remember Brian?" I blinked. "Brian Morgan? The finance director?" She nodded. "He's the reason I stayed at the company as long as I did. He's also the one who covered up the first mistake." I tilted my head. "What mistake?" She took a breath so deep it shook. "It wasn't just cheating, Kennan. I violated corporate policy multiple times. There was a conflict of interest investigation. It was supposed to be handled internally and quietly, but Brian, he buried it for me because he was one of them." I froze. One of them, she nodded. I didn't just betray you. I compromised everything I stood for. The job, the relationships, my own damn name. When you left, they didn't just lose a husband. They lost the only person who didn't know. I felt cold all over. Didn't know what? She looked at me dead in the eyes. That I was sleeping with 3 of them simultaneously, and that one of them was married to a board member. It hit me like a truck. I remembered a Christmas party where one of the senior executives, a guy named Weston, had shaken my hand with too much enthusiasm and asked me what my exit strategy was for the next 5 years. I thought it was a weird thing to ask a man who wasn't planning on leaving. Now I understood. They knew. They all knew. And I was the only fool who still believed in wedding vows and team loyalty. She wiped her eyes again, then added, I know how that sounds. I know it makes me look like a monster. I didn't respond. What could I say to that? That it hurt? That it felt like someone was peeling my rib cage open with bare hands? That I'd spent years wondering if I was boring, dull, unworthy, when really I was just the one guy not playing musical chairs with morality. Why now? I finally asked. Why tell me this tonight? She looked ashamed. Because they're coming after me. Quietly. Legally. HR already contacted me last month. They said someone's talking, digging through old files. Something got leaked. And what does that have to do with me? She hesitated, and that's when I saw it. Not just fear. Desperation. She bit her lip. I thought maybe you were the one who leaked it. My stomach flipped. What? You were the only one who ever knew the full scope. Who knew about me and Jared and probably suspected the others. After you left, I was terrified that one day you'd go public. I shook my head, stunned. So, let me get this straight. You think I've been sitting on evidence for 3 years, biding my time like some petty ex? I didn't know what to think, she whispered. You disappeared. I had no way to predict what you'd do. And now you show up at this event. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lena, I built a company from scratch. I worked 16-hour days to forget your name. I haven't spoken to your sister. I haven't checked your socials. I haven't even said your name out loud in years. I came tonight because a friend invited me. That's it. I didn't even know you'd be here. Her hands trembled in her lap. I believe you, she said. Now. But when I saw you walk through those doors tonight, I thought everything was finally collapsing. You mean your secrets? She nodded. And then she dropped another bomb. There's one more thing. Of course there was. Before you left, she said slowly, I took something from you. I froze. What do you mean? I had access to your bank credentials. You never changed the passwords after we got married. I transferred money quietly, not much at once, but enough over time. I kept it in a separate account. I told myself I was entitled to it, that I was compensating myself for all the emotional damage. But it wasn't about that. I was scared. I thought you'd leave, and I didn't want to be broke. I stared at her, blinking. You stole from me. I did, she said, voice flat. And that account still exists. I never touched it after you left. It's just sitting there. How much? $37,000. My heart thudded in my chest. She reached into her bag again, this time pulling out a USB stick. This has all the banking info. The routing numbers, the transfers, the passwords. You can drain it. It's yours. I took the drive but didn't say a word. Couldn't. My brain was running at full speed and still couldn't catch up to the storm she had unleashed. I didn't expect you to forgive me, she said quietly. But if something happens, if the company investigates, or if I end up in court, I needed you to know the full truth. Because if you ever loved me, even a little, I'm begging you not to destroy what's left of my life. I stood up. Her eyes widened, panicked. Please, just say something. But I didn't, because something inside me had changed. Not out of hatred, not even rage, but something colder, something clearer. Because in that moment, I realized that Lena wasn't afraid of being punished. She was afraid of being exposed. And she wasn't crying because she hurt me. She was crying because she finally knew I could hurt her back. I left the ballroom without a word. The moment I stepped outside, the air hit me like I'd been underwater for hours. Cold, sharp, strangely cleansing. The muffled music and scattered laughter behind me sounded like another world. A world I used to belong to before I became the man who watched his wife fall apart without touching her. I walked half a block to a quiet corner near the valet circle and leaned against a stone pillar, trying to breathe. My hands were still trembling. In one pocket, I had a folded letter from a woman who once swore she loved me more than life. In the other, a USB stick containing proof that she had stolen from me systematically while I cooked dinner and made her tea. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It never really was. It was about deception as a lifestyle, a worldview, an art form. She had crafted a version of our life that worked for her, where I was reliable, invisible, and convenient, a placeholder until her ambition found a better arrangement. And I had played my part to perfection. I had made it easy. I was never loud. I didn't chase her down. I didn't accuse her, snoop, or rage. I waited. I reasoned. I gave her the benefit of the doubt so many times that I forgot what certainty felt like. And in doing so, I handed her the tools to build a future without me while still using me as the foundation. That was the part that cut the deepest. I wasn't just cheated on. I was used to pay her rent, to build her reputation, to keep her warm on lonely nights while she texted someone else under the covers, pretending it was just her team lead working late. And even now, even after she confessed, even after she looked me in the eyes with tears and regret and shaking hands, I couldn't tell whether she was more sorry or more afraid. That's when I saw him, standing across the street near a row of parked luxury sedans. Half hidden by a row of shrubs was a man in a charcoal gray suit, maybe early 40s, stiff posture, shiny shoes, eyes locked on me. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But no, he wasn't looking past me. He was watching me. And when he saw that I'd noticed him, he didn't look away. He just turned casually and walked down the sidewalk with the kind of quiet precision that sent a chill down my spine. I don't believe in paranoia. Never have. But I know what it looks like when someone's assessing a threat, and I had just become one. Back inside the hotel, I made my way to the elevator. I hadn't checked into a room, but I needed a place to sit down. I knew there was a mezzanine lounge on the second floor, half empty, dimly lit, far enough from the noise. When I got there, I finally opened the letter. It was dated the day I left. The handwriting was neat but rushed. I recognized the way her lowercase e's curled back when she was nervous. Kennan, if you're reading this, then I guess you found it. I couldn't say this out loud. I knew if I tried, I'd just make it worse. I know what I did. I know what I became. And I know I killed something good. I can't explain what I was looking for. Maybe I wanted to feel wanted again. Maybe I got drunk on attention. Or maybe I was just a coward who couldn't say out loud that she was broken inside. But you didn't deserve it. Not any of it. You were the only thing in my life that was ever stable. And I broke you. I broke us. And I hate myself more than I can explain. You'll probably never forgive me. I wouldn't either. But if there's any part of you that still believes in who I used to be, not who I became, then please know that I will carry this guilt to my grave. I hope you find someone who never makes you doubt yourself. Someone who sees you. All of you. I never really said thank you. So, thank you, Kennan, for being the one thing I should have cherished more than I did. Lena. I sat there for a long time, just staring at that final line. I didn't feel vindicated or comforted or healed. Because the thing about guilt is it doesn't restore what's broken. It just confirms that it was. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me in the parking garage. 5 minutes. Don't bring her. No name, no context, no tone. Just direction. My blood ran cold. I took the USB stick out of my pocket and stared at it. Then I looked down at the folded letter and knew whatever was waiting for me downstairs wasn't random. It was connected to her, to all of it. So I stood up, took the elevator down, and walked into a storm that had been building for 3 years, one decision at a time. The parking garage was half empty, lit by rows of flickering overhead fluorescents that hummed just loud enough to get under your skin. The kind of place that always felt colder than the street above, like it existed in a separate world. Beneath the polished surface, beneath the fake smiles and carefully pressed suits where truth doesn't have to pretend anymore. I walked slowly, carefully. Each footstep echoed off the cement. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. The click of a dress shoe bounced off a column, but I couldn't see anyone until I rounded the second row and saw him waiting. Same man from earlier. Charcoal gray suit, crisp shirt, standing by a silver Mercedes with tinted windows, arms crossed, as calm as if he were waiting for a valet. "I figured you'd come," he said, voice smooth and unhurried. "Kennan Ryle, right?" I didn't answer. He gestured to a spot a few feet from him, like he was inviting me to join him for coffee instead of whatever the hell this was. "Relax. Not here to threaten you." "That's comforting," I muttered, but I stayed standing. He studied me for a second, not like he was analyzing me, but like he already knew me, like he'd read my file. "You and Lena were married 12 years, correct? What's your name?" I asked. "Doesn't matter." "It matters to me." He ignored the question and kept going. "You left quietly. No lawyers, no alimony, no bad press. That was clean. Impressive. I didn't come down here to be flattered." "No," he said, cracking the faintest smile. "You came because you're not stupid. You came because a woman who destroyed your life just gave you a USB drive that ties her to federal crimes." I stiffened. So this wasn't just about her cheating. It wasn't just about HR. He tilted his head. "Did she tell you what she really helped bury?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Then you didn't open the folder marked M47 Holdings." My mouth went dry. "You've seen the contents." "Let's just say I've been following her digital footprint for a while. The company she worked for, it's been under quiet federal review for the last 18 months. Insider trading, falsified earnings, offshore transactions. There's a very short list of people involved, and your ex-wife was one of them." I tried to process what he was saying, but it was like trying to drink from a fire hose. "I thought this was about her affairs," I said, still trying to get a grip. "Affairs are a distraction," he said plainly. "Lena didn't just lie to you. She lied on disclosures. She signed off on falsified reports. And according to metadata on the USB you now hold, she stored copies of every communication, every account number, every movement of funds. All of it." I stared at him, completely frozen. "Why would she keep all that?" I asked. "That's insane." He chuckled under his breath. "That's where you come in." I blinked. "Me?" He stepped forward. "She stored those files under your name. She created a dummy profile using your social passwords. Enough breadcrumbs to make it look like you were the one doing the collecting." My stomach dropped. "She used me as cover." "Exactly. And she didn't stop there. She opened 2 cloud storage accounts in your name. Same email you used to file taxes back in 2018. That's how the funds stayed hidden. You were her shield." A wave of heat rose through my chest, followed by something darker. A kind of slow-burning fury I hadn't felt in years. Not even when I caught her hand in hand with another man. This was something else, something colder. She hadn't just broken vows. She had weaponized me. "Why tell me this?" I asked. "If you're part of an investigation, aren't you supposed to be—" He cut me off. "We're not government." "Not exactly. Think of us as a third party. Quiet interests. People who stand to lose a lot if this explodes." My jaw clenched. "So what do you want from me?" "We want access to the full drive, not just what she gave you. We know she's holding back, and we believe you're the only person she might still trust." "You want me to spy on her?" "No," he said calmly. "We want you to talk to her. Ask questions, push her, find out where the rest of the files are. And when you get them, you bring them to us." "And if I don't?" He didn't threaten me. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed me a folded slip of paper. I opened it. It was a printed screenshot of a file directory. Dozens of folders. One of them labeled K.Ryle_contingency. "She has insurance," the man said, "in case this ever came back to her. And if you think she won't use it, you don't know her half as well as we do." I stared at the list. So many folders, so many secrets. He looked at me one more time, then turned and walked away as if the conversation had never happened. I stood there, frozen, for at least 5 minutes. Long enough for the valet to give me an odd glance. Long enough for the cool of the cement floor to creep into my shoes. She used me even after I left. Even after I thought I'd gotten away. Now I was right back in the middle of it with the kind of knowledge that gets people ruined. Or worse, when I finally made it to my car, I didn't drive. I just sat in the driver's seat and stared straight ahead, trying to breathe through the quiet panic rising in my chest. How much of my life had she staged? How much of my trust had she traded for silence? And worst of all, if she knew that I knew this now, what would she do next? I checked my phone. Another text from an unknown number. Tell her we'll be watching. And so should you. I didn't sleep that night, because for the first time since the day I left her, I wasn't afraid of what she'd confess. I was afraid of what she hadn't. By morning, I knew I had to see her again. Not because I missed her, not because I needed more answers, but because I finally understood something I hadn't been willing to admit before. She hadn't just wrecked our marriage or drained my bank account. She hadn't just cheated, lied, and vanished behind a wall of denials and legal silence. She'd stolen my identity. She'd worn my name like a badge while building a second life behind it. A digital ghost I never authorized. A shadow copy of me crafted for her safety, her schemes, her survival. And now she was scared. Not because I'd returned, but because I knew. And that made me more dangerous than anyone she had ever slept with, lied to, or outmaneuvered. I didn't call. I didn't text. I showed up. Her condo building was newer, fancier than the one we'd shared back when we were still pretending we had something worth keeping alive. A sleek glass tower with valet parking and concierge smiles. I signed in using my real name. I made sure they said it out loud over the phone when they called up to her unit. She buzzed me in. I took the elevator up and found her standing in the doorway of Unit 24B, barefoot in an oversized sweater, eyes red like she hadn't slept either. Neither of us spoke right away. She stepped aside and let me in. The place was clean, obsessively so, like she'd spent the last few hours trying to control something. There were lavender candles burning in every corner. Fresh fruit on the counter, untouched. A playlist of soft piano music playing on a loop. "You read the letter?" she asked finally, voice hollow. I nodded, but I didn't sit down. "I didn't come here to talk about love letters, Lena." She blinked slowly. "Then why are you here?" I reached into my pocket and tossed the folded paper onto her dining table. The same screenshot I'd been given in the garage, the one showing the file directory, her insurance. The moment she saw it, her entire body locked up. Her throat bobbed once. "Where did you get that?" "I think you know." She stepped back. Just one step, but it was telling. I continued, calm but cold. "You didn't just use me for money. You built a fall guy. A fake version of me. Digital accounts, cloud storage, paper trails. You created a backup plan in case everything went south." "I never used it," she said quietly. "But you could have." "I didn't. That has to count for something." I stepped closer. "It counts for nothing." She turned away and gripped the edge of the kitchen island, her shoulders shaking slightly. "I was being threatened," she said, almost too quietly. "You think I just did this for fun? That I spent nights wiring money and fabricating accounts because I wanted to? They had leverage on me, on people I worked with. Started small. A favor here, a signature there. But then it grew, and I was in too deep." I kept my eyes locked on her. "Then why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you say something?" She laughed bitterly. "Say what?" "Hey babe, by the way, I'm laundering money under your name and sleeping with my boss, so I don't end up in prison? You'd have walked out the second I opened my mouth." "I walked out anyway." "I know," she whispered. "And I deserved it." There was a pause. Not a heavy one, but the kind that comes when you realize the person in front of you has stopped pretending. Then she turned back to me, eyes wide with something I couldn't quite place. "You have no idea how bad it is," she said. "There are things I never even saw. Encrypted stuff I signed off on without understanding. I tried to keep records because I didn't trust them either. But I never intended to use your identity. I swear." "You did more than use it," I said. You built an entire alternate version of me. I didn't use it, she said again, firmer this time. But they might. That stopped me. What? She lowered her voice. If they think you know too much, and now you do, they won't just try to bury me. They'll come for you too. Because you were the one person I left loose in the system. And if you expose what I gave you, it will look like you were in on it. I stared at her, feeling the ice in my veins. This wasn't about guilt anymore. This was survival. They'll make it look like I helped you, she added. And then they'll let the narrative write itself. You let this happen, I said. You had years to stop it. I tried, she snapped. You think I wanted to live like this? I wake up every day wondering if this is the day someone kicks in my door. I've changed my passwords so many times I can't even remember which name I'm using anymore. My entire life is a performance now. You think I'm proud of that? Then help me fix it. She looked confused. Fix it? You want to clear your name? Then give me everything. Not just this USB. The real files, the real records, the off-book messages, the original transfers, every backup drive, every hidden login. Everything you have. She hesitated. And you'll give it to them? No, I said. I'll give it to someone who doesn't have a stake in this. Who? I don't know yet. But I'm done being a passenger in this disaster you created. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. Because for the first time in years, I was finally standing up to the version of her I never wanted to believe existed. The manipulator, the strategist, the survivor who was willing to burn everyone just to keep her secrets. I'll need time, she said eventually. Some of the files aren't in my place. They're at a storage unit under a different name. I nodded. Then you have 48 hours. To do what? To decide if you want to be remembered as the woman who dragged everyone down with her, or the one who finally told the truth. She didn't answer. She just stared at me. And in that moment, I saw something new behind her eyes. Not guilt, not regret. Something closer to respect for the man who'd finally stopped letting her write his story for him. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Not because I was scared. That part had burned itself out. Not because I didn't know what was coming. I knew exactly what might happen. It was something else. A kind of numbness. Like the adrenaline had given up and all that was left was this heavy, steady pressure in my chest. A quiet weight that I carried from room to room like an invisible anchor. But on the third day, just before noon, she called. She didn't text. She didn't send a cryptic message. She called, and that told me something had changed. Her voice was clipped but steady. Can you meet me? The storage unit's ready. I've pulled everything. An hour later, we stood side by side in a steel corridor under fluorescent lights, facing a thin orange door with the number 47C spray painted across the front. She didn't speak. She just entered the code and opened it. Inside were 4 cardboard boxes, labeled, organized, neat. Of course. She walked me through each one. Passwords, encrypted drives, printed logs. A paper trail that stretched back over 6 years, from the first doctored report to the last offshore payment that someone tried to hide under a fake shell company. And all of it, every byte, every signature, tied back to people far beyond her. But she didn't ask for protection. She didn't ask me to lie. When I looked at her, I saw a woman who had finally stopped running. Not because she was cornered, but because she was done. And in that moment, for the first time in a long, long time, I felt pity, not hate. She handed me the final folder, a sealed envelope with my name written on the front in black ink. This is everything else, she said, including the legal document revoking any digital accounts made in your name. I've signed it, had it notarized. I took it. Why now? I asked. She looked me in the eye. Because I don't want to be remembered for how I ended us. I want to be remembered for finally doing one thing right. That was the last time I saw her. I turned the documents over to the authorities. Not the shady third party who approached me in the garage, but the right people. Clean channels, no games. I hired my own attorney, a digital forensics expert, and I gave them everything. And in return, they gave me something I never expected. A future. The investigation widened. She was never named publicly, but those who needed to know knew. Quiet settlements were made. People stepped down. Others disappeared from the corporate world entirely. The storm that was supposed to hit me never did, because I'd gotten ahead of it. Because this time I didn't disappear quietly. And as for me, I stayed in San Diego. The company I built with 2 friends hit its stride. We expanded, rebranded, grew past the ghosts of who I used to be. I started sleeping through the night again. I stopped checking over my shoulder. And eventually, when I was finally ready, I started to live again. Not as someone's husband, not as someone's backup plan, but as Kennan. A man who'd been broken, yes, shattered even, but who rebuilt every part of himself stronger, cleaner, and with a kind of clarity that no betrayal could take away. Took time, took pain, but it also gave me peace. Because in the end, I learned the most important lesson of all. Closure doesn't come when someone says they're sorry. It comes when you finally realize you never needed them to be whole again. And that was the most freeing thing I've ever felt in my life.